Okay, and so we're recording. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Mark Ganter. And just some thumbs up if we can all see the screen with our PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you very much. Like I said, Mark Ganter is the owner of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City. He will be giving you a little bit more background on Little Water. And really, without further ado, thank you, Ruth, for the opportunity. Thank you for my friends and colleagues and so many great students online. And without further ado, Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Diana. And, you know, let me also kind of offer you some props. You know, one of the real blessings of being able to do this in Atlantic City is having kind of the involvement and access to Stockton and great people like Donna and her colleagues, and frankly, her students that, you know, just bring a wealth of energy, a wealth of challenges, and, you know, a really unique influence that sort of helps us kind of cater what we do and adjust, you know, what our offerings are and kind of how we approach the market to this changing dynamic of patrons and residents in Atlantic City. You know, they're not out-of-state gamblers anymore exclusively. They're, you know, locals, they're students transitioning from school to jobs. And it's great to be able to kind of participate, see, and kind of work with them and bring them into our fold and actually enter their fold. So it's a great time to be in Atlantic City, and I'm very happy we chose to be here. Let's click the next slide. There we go. So we are a craft distillery located in Atlantic City. We about 7 years ago, my brother and I purchased my father a 5-gallon copper pot still that we happen to be using right now downstairs to do an R&D batch of a collaboration spirit that we're making with a local brewery. It was just a gift for an aging gentleman who was always getting in our hair with different things, and we're like, oh, let's get him a still and keep him busy and kind of away from us for a while. And it led to, you know, just two sons and their father spending a lot of time together. I was living in DC and I was traveling up to Atlantic City, or to New Jersey rather, to enjoy that. And we found out in 2013, the same month as his birthday, that they had passed craft distillation laws in New Jersey. And for the first time ever, frankly, enabled the birth of this industry at a smaller level, but with plenty of potential to grow. Up to 20,000 gallons a year of production could be done under this license. So we gave ourselves about 6 months or so to just play with the idea and see if we could even come up with recipes, if it's something we'd even want to do, leave our careers over. And by the time the 6 months was up, we decided, you know, we'd actually written a business plan. We were out to banks, we were looking for real estate in Atlantic City, and we were moving forward. So fast forward to summer of 2016, we wrapped up our lease and got building permits, and we began construction on Little Water Distillery in the north end of Atlantic City, the area called the Inlet. And we were able to sort of land on a building that most human beings would never walk towards, let alone enter. And just been blessed to kind of take this failing piece of real estate with 1 or 2 random businesses opening up or using as a warehouse, whatever, over the years, and really kind of build a neighborhood and a small movement around it. You know, we really focused heavily on the quality of our spirits, but also kind of the community engagement component to build a brand and make, you know, market our brand and our products through, you know, emotional connections, which is absolutely critical in how we go to market, to make sure that the first time anyone has an experience with our products or our brand, that it's in an emotionally lasting way. And that sounds very vague, and oftentimes it is, but it's heavily dependent upon sharing the story, sharing the process, bringing them into the fold, letting them see and understand, offering them obviously tasting opportunities, but then access to cocktails that we make, and making sure that the cocktails made with our spirits are the absolute best expression of our spirits in a cocktail, and almost like a life-altering experience the first time you drink it. It's got to be a lasting impression that resonates, that kind of is as strong as the story behind it, and that leaves people with a lasting memory that goes beyond a free t-shirt they might get from another spirits company, or a hat or a sticker that fades or gets given away. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but it's the only way, I think, to kind of grow a customer base, build a market in a lasting and sustainable way. And it's a lot of work, and we do it with a lot of heart and pride. So that's a little bit of the background behind Little Water Distillery. Since that time, my brother's no longer with us. I have a new partner. We have a new distiller, James Stanch, who joined us a couple years ago. He came on board and launched our long-awaited gin, which has been one of our fastest growing and best-selling products. Also steeped in kind of like local history and an emotional story to us. We found someone found a gun on our property in 1875, 38 caliber snub nose revolver that had been in the ground out back since time immemorial. And he was digging for prohibitionary glass, and he found that, and he gave it to us. And it's been hanging in our distillery ever since. And we were dying to figure out how to incorporate this into a brand. And our gin was our fifth and final major brand that we were going to launch for the foreseeable future. And it was a perfect opportunity because we were creating an indigenous gin, a gin using botanicals largely from the area, not exclusively, but often, ones that thrive in this particular climate. And the notion was that this gun came right from the ground around us, much like these botanicals. So the brand of the gin is Rusted Revolver, and the label has an illustration of that gun with 5 of the key botanicals enveloping it and supporting it. And it's just been a real fun one to launch and fun to talk about. So in addition to distilling spirits, marketing and distributing them, we also do regular tours, again, to kind of bring people in, create that emotional connection to our brand, and then take advantage of the fact that people enjoy coming here. We do other kind of local events within the community. We try and sort of brand this institution, this building, Little Water Distillery, as a place where experts in their field converge. And one of the more fun things that we launched, my partner launched this spring, in a way to sort of build some traffic through on Thursday evenings, was a series called Explain It to Me Like I'm a 5-Year-Old. And it was actually born out of a conversation with a professor from Stockton who would come regularly. He and his wife were both professors at Stockton at the time, and he was a physics professor. And a friend was traveling to the CERN Collider and just had this question about whether or not, a true cataclysmic event could occur there. And the next thing you know, we pose that question to the professor, and this crowd forms around and crowds form around, and the questions grow and the questions grow and the conversation develops. And we're like, we should do this on a regular basis. So we basically, random Thursdays, we'd invite a professor in to just, speak about what they do, do a light presentation for adults with a cocktail, and just field questions. And it was like some of the most fun we've had since we've owned this distillery. But that hopefully gives a sense of who we are, how we roll in this town, and a little bit of our business ethos. Specifically to our products, up until about 3 months ago, we were solely focused on producing Liberty and Prosperity rum. Those were the first 2 products in our product line and the core of our business model. 48 Blocks vodka, which is a French wheat vodka that we initially intended to distribute only in Atlantic City as a sort of a handshake to our new home. Because if you haven't been here, vodka, or Atlantic City is a vodka town through and through. It's the only thing people give a shit about in Atlantic City, and we weren't making it. So we finally said, all right, let's just give the people what they want, and we did a vodka. Now it's probably our largest selling brand, next to Rusted Revolver. Whitecap Whiskey, which was a collaboration project with a distillery that we kind of consulted with and met with before opening. And again, our Rusted Revolver gin. Separately, we do a couple small format projects like beer distillations into, these basically beer schnapps collaborations with other brewers in the area, just to kind of enjoy the process, make friends, co-market, co-brand. And then 3 months ago, we are all confronted with this looming shutdown, looming change in how we do business. And we didn't know what the future held. We were certainly not on solid footing, being 3 years old, but also having, plenty of stumbles along the way. There was very, very, very little chance of Little Water persevering through this. And by little, I mean zero. There was an article that someone forwarded to me, I think late February, about a small distillery in California that was using it was presented as this genius like stroke of creativity and community support and blah 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 blah, and basically saying that this distillery came up with this idea of using a byproduct of distillation to create hand sanitizer and give it away to the public. And it was just, feel good, great thing. And I'm getting all these texts and emails about like, hey, did you hear about this? Why don't you guys start doing this? And this is the problem with the press. It's a great surface story. It sounds and makes perfect sense. However, in reality, distillation is, it's regulated for a particular reason. Not everyone can go buy a still and distill at home. It's illegal expressly everywhere in the country. You can make beer and wine at home up to some ridiculous amount, like 50 gallons per person per year, but you're not allowed to distill for consumption, only for essential oils or fuel oil. And even with that, you need to have a permit. Why is that? Because it's a heavily taxed product, and it can be a very dangerous and lethal product. During distillation, multiple alcohols come off the still, and only one or so of them are fit for human consumption. One of the first that comes off in major quantities is called methanol, and it's what moonshiners say kills you or makes you go blind. That's methanol, and unless you are skilled or have proper equipment or know what you're doing, it's very difficult to transition from methanol to ethanol. So what you do is you basically, as you're starting the process, methanol comes off, and eventually it'll transition to ethanol. So you want to give a little bit of leeway after the ethanol transition to ensure that there's no methanol whatsoever in the bottled product or the product that you intend to bottle and sell and serve. This distillery, and mind you, methanol is a toxin to humans, both ingested and topically. Doesn't matter how it gets in your system, it'll find its way in. It will lead to methanol poisoning, which again, at best will make you blind, and at worst will kill you in a matter of minutes at very, very little, or low consumption. I think it's 3 milliliters. It's very, very low. So anyway, this distillery in Oregon, or California, I can't recall exactly, was using methanol, putting in a hand sanitizer, encouraging people to rub it into their hands to the point of absorption, and getting all this great press for it. And the last thing I wanted to ever do was be associated with the outcome of that story, because at some point, when everything settles, there's going to be, instance of methanol poisoning or methanol absorption. And, when the dots are connected, it's going to go back to these distillers that were using methanol to create hand sanitizer. And again, everything after that would be suspicious. And I didn't want to kind of, fall suspect of that. So I was adamantly against it. And then about 7 o'clock, I want to say Tuesday, March 2nd or March 3rd, I'm sitting at my computer, and an email comes through from the TTB, which is the federal agency that regulates our industry, authorizing distilleries to begin producing hand sanitizer in accordance with the World Health Organization's prescribed formula for the COVID-19 outbreak. And it was at that second when, all the other distilleries in the state were sort of trying to figure out what they're going to do too. We just seized the moment and sent out an email saying going forward, we'll begin producing hand sanitizer. Granted, you have to buy the ingredients. You can't just make it from scratch, or we don't have those ingredients in now. So when I say that we wouldn't make it through this, we had a negative account or a negative balance in our bank account at that point. So I had to scrape to come up with $1,000 to acquire the raw materials to begin doing this. And we found ourselves, within 24 hours in a completely different industry, trying to source chemicals, trying to source packaging, trying to figure out the labeling, like literally going from a distillery to a pharmaceutical manufacturer or manufacturing facility. And at that very moment, everyone in the country, and if not the world, that was capable of producing this was scurrying for the same supplies, going to the same suppliers, calling the same phone numbers, reaching out to, their closest contacts in the industry, just like everyone else. And we found ourselves in this really, really, really weird situation where, like, we were taking what seemed like a minuscule enormous relative to us, but $1,000 in the grand scheme of any company isn't that much unless you don't have a dollar to your name. So as we're kind of doing this, and as we're finding out we have to borrow more money and actually buy more, because that's not going to get us through the first minuscule phase of this, you have these looming concerns about, well, is this a week thing? Is this a month thing? Is this a 6-month thing? Is Purell all gonna wake up, and all the incumbent manufacturers going to sort of step up now and do what we're doing, turn on a dime, and begin supplying the country, the world with this demand for sanitizer? And in about, I'd say 3 days, it became incredibly apparent that one of the real assets that a young company has is this ability to turn on the dime and pivot. And I've had like a couple business mantras in my life that stick with me, and most of them are bullshit, but the one that will never leave is that it's not the big that eat the small. And I can cite countless examples of this, and I think more and more as the economy evolves, it's the fast that eat the slow. And 2.5, 3 months later, we continue to get calls from institutions that never thought once about where they would source hand sanitizer from. They would simply call Cisco, Uline, whoever's on the order list, whoever they have long-term contract with, to supply them gallons upon gallons of whatever they need, whether it's trash bags or cleaner or sanitizer or detergent or Band-Aids or whatever. And they get nothing but crickets on the other side. This is 3 months later. Companies that could buy and sell like Atlantic City 5 times over are unable to supply the basic needs to clients they've had for years and years and years. And now we're doing it. So what's on the next slide before I keep going?
Well, I do want to get to the video because I bet
Yes.
questions, but I think you just want to, you talked about how you were able to pivot. So the next slide was how you're aligning with our creativity theme.
All right, Leah, let's pause for a second. I'll shut up, and you'll just you'll see a little video capture of what has kind of taken place since that time that we kind of decided to make the pivot towards hand sanitizer production.
It's really hard because here at Little Water, we really started with a community that's become family. We have customers we see every week, twice a week, and it's really depressing sometimes to have them come to the door, not recognize them or recognize them with their masks on and stuff. We didn't go into this business to have a hand sanitizer company. We wanted to have a distillery and a bar that helps facilitate the community. And we're hoping to get back to business as soon as possible. The first major organization we donated to was the Red Cross. We teamed up with other distilleries in South Jersey and donated each about 18, 20 gallons or so that they combined to go to people affected by the COVID-19 crisis. On the weekends, we donate bottles to any folks who walk up, as well as if they're making a purchase or not, and that varies by weekend by availability. This weekend we had 500 bottles ready to go. We love and support the community around us, and it's important to us that in times of good and in bad, high and low, we're here, and we're kind of in a fortunate situation that we're able to provide that to them, which is really nice for us to be able to help out. During a normal week, we'll bottle 2 days a week, run the still a couple days a week, packaging and things like that, and it's small volumes, 12 cases of vodka at a time, things like that, which is say 200 bottles in an afternoon. We've done over the last 2 weeks 27,000 bottles of sanitizer. Smaller bottles, 8 and 16 ounce bottles, so it's a lot more bottling, but the volume is tremendous. I think by the end of this week, we should be somewhere in the realm of like 4,500 gallons of sanitizer in the last 2 weeks. On a normal day, we have, for production, we have our head distiller, James, and he has one assistant, and that runs 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Since this has happened and occurred, we right now have anywhere from 8 to 10 people who are helping us out, filling bottles and taking orders and labeling bottles and packaging, just to get through the sheer volume that's going on right now. We've been really fortunate to have great partners. The Seed, a living beer project, which is opening next door in the near future, as soon as life gets somewhat back to normal, open their arms, hearts, and warehouse to us to store 16 pallets of bottles, and gave us a key to get in there and outside whenever we needed to. We've had great community support from folks who've sent us lunch to help feed our staff, and places like Back Bay Ale House, who sends a mule package featuring our vodka. They were running low on mint. We sent over mint. We were low on masks and gloves. People donate masks and gloves, and it's just kind of this all big circle of love right now that's happening in the Atlantic City area. The first week, we developed an idea where we would just have people come to the bar. Not allowed to sit and have a drink. They had to come in, grab their products, and go. After 2 weeks of that, we kind of started, even ahead of the governor's recommendations, making people only stay outside. And that was a big change. So we had to move everything to the door, have one customer at a time come in, one customer go out. And then again, ahead of the recommendations, last week we actually started requiring our customers to have a mask. We want to protect the folks who are working here and other customers waiting in line. And it's great on days when it's nice out. People hang out, are really happy to do so. When it rains, we bring tents out, and we put tents out so folks aren't standing in the rain. We've changed things so that we have contactless pickup. So we use a chip reader where people grab the card and they're able to put it back without touching anything. We do online pickup where people can either have curbside pickup or they can order online and just come in, grab it, and go. There's actually no transaction taking place here in the distillery. We work with Lucky Dog Apparel, which is the local t-shirt company who helped put together a great t-shirt campaign to support locals, and our tagline has been "Wash your damn hands." We try to donate as much sanitizer as possible here at the distillery. We do not charge for it here, but not everybody can get to the distillery. So what we did is we worked with some of our great retail partners in the area to sell it to them at a reduced cost, where they can then sell it to their customers as a draw and tie-in to get them to come into the liquor store and get sanitizer for basically retail value. I want to thank everybody, our regular loyal customers who come in every week, pick up a bottle and visit and say hello, and everything they've done to support us, dropping off lunch, picking up hats and t-shirts that they didn't need, buying gift certificates that they'll use later. It's been a huge help in helping us stay in business.
So that was the funny thing about that video is that we didn't even know it was being made. It was someone that had kind of just a fan of the distillery and a fan of our brand who, like so many people, aren't working right now and had ample time available to them, came in to begin working our bottling line and helping us label, produce sanitizer, bottle it, package it, get it out. And he's also an Apple genius. And, you know, on the side, he was just kind of taking all this B-roll and asking like questions here and there, and just, you know, just out with his, like all Apple geniuses, with his phone in his hand all the time, but actually happened to be taking, you know, taking footage. And he just put it together and shot it over to us one day, and I was like, really? This is incredible. I couldn't ask for that or put it together if I tried. But you know, one of the things the video does, and I'm going to kind of bring this back around to the purpose of this presentation, is I think speak a little bit to the creativity of the solution. You know, there's, oh, there we are.
Did you want that?
No, it's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay.
You know, for us, you know, I don't hold us as a terribly creative company. I think we employ creative solutions to opportunities and challenges we see in the marketplace. But, you know, we found an opportunity to sort of address a need and bring it to the market in a creative way. Had I been the person interviewed, I would have said a few things differently than Guy did. Guy's my partner, and he did a great job. But I wouldn't have used the word donate, because we have done very little donation. It's very difficult for a company down to its last buck to begin donating a product that's never made before and produces very inefficiently. We offer some to the public in small format. We've made some donations where we were capable of doing it, but we've tried to get it to the places that would be able to use it, had the least access to it, had the greatest capability of purchasing it. And by that I mean, you know, there are different ways of purchase outright. Like some institutions, some groups have to pay cash. Some have to put on credit. Some have POs, we don't get paid for 60 days. But the vast majority are FEMA reimbursed and receive a 75% reimbursement from FEMA for any supplies required during this crisis. And fortunately, they're mostly on the front lines, and they have the greatest means of distribution. So, you know, we were able to sort of stay solvent, distribute, but also make sure that the financial burden was spread evenly amongst, you know, the recipients and those with the greatest need. We became very overwhelmed with the number of requests that come in independently or individually for sanitizer. So we decided absolutely out of the gate not to retail sanitizer. In other words, we couldn't take in like knocks on the door and people buying ones and twos, and it wouldn't have benefited us other than, you know, a very, very hard won and hard-earned, you know, financial windfall on individual sanitizer bottle sales. Not our model. Our model has always been to produce spirits, build brands around them, and leverage the brand awareness and leverage, you know, the brand connections that we make with people for our retailers. We want, in peace times, we want the bars and liquor stores that carry our products to get something more than just cases of bottles from us. We want them to get business. We want them to have customers. We want them to have people walking in specifically asking for us and then further shopping when they're there. It's critical when you're a small company that doesn't have a marketing war chest to be able to leverage things that the larger companies can't leverage. You know, I'll take Tito's as an example because I love beating up on Tito's. You know, their marketing budget for Atlantic County alone is near $1 million annually. We didn't make that in the first 2 years that we were up and running. That gets you a lot of t-shirts, a lot of point of sale, a lot of customer support in the alcohol kind of parlance, which means hats, t-shirts, whatever the liquor store owner wants hanging on his wall. Tito's will print and put their logo on it. All that stuff all day long. We don't do that. We can't do that, and we will never do that. because it doesn't make sense for our business model. It doesn't establish an emotional connection. It establishes a temporary one that you have to keep buying and buying and buying and buying and buying, or else you lose. Once you stop buying, then you're forgotten. We were able to address the demand for sanitizer in a completely scarce market. And rather than us take the retail revenue for selling it out of our distillery doors, the liquor stores, aside from the first boon, the weekend of the shutdown, when everyone ran out and they had their best 2 days on record in years. The sales on the weekend before the shutdown dwarfed anything in memorable history. And you can ask anyone in the market. But then that flattened out quickly. But if you were trying to, as a citizen, trying to buy hand sanitizer and you went to your normal channels, CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, whatever, there's nothing on the shelves and there's nothing coming in sight. We were able to give our liquor store partners, the only outlet open to us at the time, access to the sanitizer to sell. And all of a sudden they had an uncommon draw over those liquor stores that didn't carry our products. So now we were taking this windfall asset, if you will, and sharing it with the business that we want to support us going forward. And you know who wasn't doing that? Tito's, or any other liquor brand for that matter. And we were able to do that. That was something that no other liquor or no other distillery in the state was doing. So I take great pride in that creative move on our part, because it met our ongoing goals of building programs that support our wholesale and resale customers so that they'll in turn support us going forward. Building solutions without spending a lot of marketing dollars. To this day, we still don't retail the sanitizer at our door because it just makes no sense. So fast forward to about 3 weeks ago, and I don't want to say that the bottom on the hand sanitizer market is falling out. I think that the supply is growing. The demand will spike again this summer without a doubt, and it's already starting to grow now. But it was transitioning from like this desperate day one, I'll take it in a plastic bag if you'll sell it to me, to, oh, you don't have it in an 8-ounce spray pump? Because it's really convenient to just throw it in my purse if I have a spray pump. And we're seeing like, okay, now, you know, we've gone from sort of desperate need to need, but beggars are starting to become choosy, right? So now like the format, the packaging is becoming a little more relevant than it was, you know, a few months ago or a few weeks ago. But we're still in lockdown. We're still not, you know, in a position where people even need sanitizer. Ideally, everyone is at home washing their hands, spending time with their families, watching Netflix front to back, right? They're not going out in the world. They're not, you know, sanitizing themselves from anything because they're not exposed to it. Not entirely the case, but largely. Well, now as we approach this transition back into a more open economy, very little preparation has been done on the retail front, which is the other, say, and I should have said this earlier, our revenue is probably about a 3-way split. Okay, 30% out of our tasting room from bottle sales and tours and tastings and cocktail sales, maybe 35% on premise, bars and restaurants, and the balance is at liquor stores. So the only you know outlet available to us were liquor stores at the time. Well, now, and that's seasonal. In the summer, we're selling a tremendous amount to on premise, to bars and restaurants. In the you know, in the winter, much less so. Well, now we're coming to that opportunity period where the bars and restaurants would be open, we'd be thumping along, we'd be building programs with them, we'd be trying to get on cocktail menus, we'd be trying to kind of promote our products and work with the bartenders and train them on delivering our products. But that's not the case, right? No one knows what open's going to look like. But they do know that to open, or at least we believe that to open, they're going to have some robust sanitization solution available. And I'm of the firm belief, and it's largely colored by the industry I'm in right now, that like we're in a new era of competition between bars and restaurants. You know, this is Atlantic City. It has some very high-end offerings, but it often plays to the tourist and to a slightly lower kind of denominator. And, you know, you advertise on price. Who's got the best happy hour this? Who's got the cheapest margarita? Who's got the blah, 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 blah. It's a volume game. And, you know, you're competing on volume and price at that point. But, you know, I believe that going to the summer, and at least I hope so, not only for us, because I think it's healthy for the market, that there'll be a new era of competition among on-premise establishments. And they'll be competing on where's the safest environment for me to spend my money? Where can I go and feel as though I'm not putting myself in jeopardy? I'm getting to enjoy food and drink. I'm getting to spend time with friends and family. I'm getting to people watch, but I'm not doing with the agita of thinking I may contract something while I'm there. Who's offering me the best opportunity to ensure my own protection, my own sanitation? And we tried to get a little bit ahead of the curve, really kind of like run down that path and see what kind of equipment, what kind of solutions were accessible or available to us to also co-brand and promote. And we landed on a supplier that we fought tooth and nail to get to, and again, spent money we didn't have to bring in the supplies. We haven't even taken the delivery of them yet, and 50% of the inventory is already sold. And it's these sanitizing stations, which we took and rebranded as Santasticks or Santastic, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So if you look to the bottom right, you'll see 3 stations of different levels: light use, medium use, high use, and they're all touchless, retail-friendly, retail-oriented sanitizing stations that allow customers to come in, sanitize themselves, sanitize their hands, move on, go to the bathroom, do it as often as they want, but it's there, it's available, and they're present. And it's an opportunity for a bar owner or a restaurant owner to create that message that we've provided for your needs. We have something available to you. We want you to know that we're conscious of the fact that you have concerns around this, and we're going above and beyond to address those. So please feel comfortable coming and staying with us. And the place next door doesn't have one of these. So this is really kind of where we're focusing a lot of our effort on now. You know, the individual bottle sales are being addressed. There are more, you know, suppliers in the market. But again, if you went to your typical food suppliers, US Food, Cisco's, whoever, and say, hi, we're opening up in 3 days. I've got a hand sanitizer on the wall. Give me 7. I'll start off with 7. I'm gonna need about 10 later on. And they're like, you can have 0 because we have nothing, and we might have 5 next summer. That's where the industry is right now. And we were able to sort of think creatively in that direction about what is going to be needed. How can we build solutions for our partners, and hope in turn that they support us and respect us and appreciate our willingness and our desire to offer them things that allow them to open faster and compete against those that aren't doing this. And in turn, hopefully kind of find support for our products and want to support Little Water Distillery for thinking of them first. So again, you know, creativity can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You know, for us, I don't know that we're as creative as much as we are willing to take risks, willing to, you know, look at situations and explore the opportunities, but all through the lens of staying true to our business model, which is making sure that we're building business, programs, revenue streams for the people that are purchasing our products, not the end user. That's the emotional connection to the brand, but the bars and restaurants that are out there selling our products to the consumers. And again, we could take a loan and buy a bunch of free t-shirts and give them out, and know that as soon as those t-shirts are gone, they're going to ask for more t-shirts. And when those t-shirts are faded, they're going to wear them, and it's going to look shitty because it's got a faded Little Water Distillery logo on them. And then we're going to have to replace them because we're going to feel embarrassed. Like it's a traditional approach to beverage marketing that we don't think we'll ever be able to win at. We have to come at the non-traditional approach, leverage what we have here, leverage the investments we made in our brand and our community engagement, our kind of presence and our respect that we've earned in the community, and transition that to the people that we need to kind of, bring our products to market on the front lines.
Mark, it's awesome.
Yeah, sorry.
Because I'm hoping with all of that amazing content that we'll have some questions, and in the nature of time, I want to leave the minutes for people to ask questions. Now, you don't have to zip it, you have to answer all the questions, but
Okay, what we got?
but I do want to really stress, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, we met when I was contributing to a book chapter, if you remember, on sense of place and sustainability as the emergence of, the new laws changed to allow for the distilling in the state of New Jersey. And you weren't even open yet, so I couldn't even use you in the chapter. But then you ended up really falling into the footsteps of doing exactly what we were reporting on from the.
Well, I read your chapter before we opened.
Yeah, you wrote the chapter before we.
No, I read your chapter.
Oh, you read it, but you could have written it as well. But it is my hope, and I'm looking in the chat, or you guys can just unmute. I would love for you to try to digest all of that great information from Mark and ask a few questions about creativity, about, this amazing pivot that they did. I love some of your things about taking risk and non-traditional approaches and things like that. So could I open up the floor for some questions for Mark here? I know that Zoom's always a little slow. People want to see if somebody else wants to ask first, but
I won't take it personally.
not at all. I know these scholars, these honor society students will have.
Very interesting. I attended an international webinar last week. The biggest takeaway for the attendees was clearly the suggestion from a nurse that there should be a hand washing station at the front door of restaurants. Virtually impossible, right? These are businesses that are lucky to be able to open. They're living off the few cents left from whatever incentive money they may have gotten, if they received it yet. They've missed out on 2 months of critical revenue. Now you're going to run plumbing to a part of the building that doesn't even have it yet and get inspected and have absolutely impossible. Absolutely could never happen. Even though it'd be great because washing your hands is 10 times better and more effective than using a sanitizer, it's just never going to happen, right? So that's why we thought these are critical, and the reaction has been great because we were at a couple of restaurants yesterday that are like strategically thinking about where they want to have them specifically for those customer touch points. Specifically, customers are immediately aware that it's there. Really, really encouraged to hear that.
Ruth, I'm not sure if you're there. I'm not seeing everything in the chat, so if there's other things that you can read, or if someone else, I don't know if Jeff, somebody can help me, but I'm not seeing the chat.
No, there's no questions yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
Okay.
Come on, Jeff, you're chomping at the bit. Ask me something.
I am. I actually
I
was
see
just,
something from Melanie. I see one when things start.
I was just starting to write mine, but go ahead, Melanie, go first, and I'll ask after Melanie.
I'll read it. When things start going back to normal, how do you expect to level your overhead to continue on with your being a distillery to coincide with meeting the demand for sanitizer? Level our overhead, in other words, kind of trim expenses to get back to distilling. Is that what the nature of the question?
Yeah, your original business plan and passion is, of course, in distilling, but you did very well in pivoting and meeting this demand for sanitizing. And like you said, your on-premise desires has always been to push your alcohol sales, and now you're seeing that with us going back to normal, you want to kind of do both. How are you going to kind of transition to that to succeed as a business?
Well, I should probably be clear. We haven't departed from distillation.
Correct. I was just wondering how you're going to do both.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And truth is, I don't anticipate this doing too much more of this. But I didn't anticipate doing more than like 50 gallons either. We've done about 15,000. So we will continue to do this as long as there's a demand for it, as long as it makes financial sense. But we've positioned ourselves financially to actually kind of do what we were supposed to be doing, this time much better and with much deeper resources. and actually throw, kind of bring the notion of an emotional connection to our brands to a higher platform. You know, right now it's done like guerrilla warfare. Someone comes in and you make them feel like this is the most special place they've ever been, and you force feed them the Kool-Aid, and just ensure that there's a long-term memory established in the minds and the palate of the person that came in to try that. But you can only do that with as many people that walk in the door, or as many tastes as you can get to in a location. Well, now we can begin kind of spending money not on kind of, again, traditional marketing, but building additional programs with our on-premise customers. So one of the things I really look forward to this summer is not doing a lot of tastings and tours in the distillery. Why? Because I don't anticipate there being a huge amount of tourism to Atlantic City this summer. I think there's a lot of residents that are going to be getting out and about. I think people, the pent-up demand is just kind of get out and enjoy themselves is going to be great. And I think it's going to take years for our very loyal and kind of very valued bars and restaurants to kind of to rebound. And rather than us do, spend all the time and effort and money on our cocktail program here, which basically allows us to shine, I'd like to spend money on working with the same people that kind of work on our programs and do little water nights around the city, right? Why should they come here and spend their money here when they could go to one of our many partner bars and restaurants and do like a mixology night with little water at Boré or at the beer hall or at this restaurant or that bar. We're getting the desired wholesale revenue that we wanted. We're bringing business to them. We're bringing people that would normally want to patronize our venue over to their venue. And everyone wins, but the important thing is that they win more. And they know that we brought them that win, and we could have kept the win for ourselves. So that's one of my immediate goals. But there's only so many people that can do that. So now we have to start building staff. We have to start getting more, for lack of a better term, brand ambassadors. But I think brand enthusiasts, brand loyalists, and people that can kind of sort of leverage that for us, that are us, that can kind of begin doing training and engagement with our bars and restaurants and really start to kind of disseminate what we think we built here. Very vague answer, I'm sorry. It's the best one I got though.
No, that's okay. I really like I've worked for a brewery and stuff, and it's all logistics. I've seen it. But I do really like the way that, this is hospitality. You've got to even do it on the ground floor of the brands in general. And I really like the fact that, you guys want to go out and do the nights for Little Water at so-and-so establishment, because that builds you both up. And like you said, it's about building a brand. Great job.
The hardest thing, and I don't want to call it a misstep, it's just a reality. Most businesses like this are set up to fail. All right. You have breweries especially. It's so difficult. I mean, it's very easy to learn how to make beer. And it's very easy to convince people that beer you made is great, right? Because they don't hurt your feelings. And it probably is great, but there's a million options out there. So they're not all the best. They're all okay, right? The same with our spirits. Our spirits aren't the best in the world. They're pretty damn good, but they're good, but they're not the best. So, we're competing against every other producer in the world, right? Doesn't matter if it's from Russia, China, America, around the corner, it doesn't matter. They're all competing for market share. And if you're a young company and you don't come from the industry and you don't have intimate knowledge and a really effective skill set to penetrate the market, vis-a-vis the competition that's funded from companies as big as Pernod Ricard, well, you got to figure out how to make money so you can stay open. And the easiest way to do that is to push liquor or beer across the bar and take cash back for it. And as soon as you fall into that trap, it's very difficult to get out because that's instant revenue. It's high margin revenue. You're making it, you're selling it, you're keeping all the take. And once you fall into that and you divert your resources and your attention from building a wholesale business, it's very, very, very difficult to peel back from that. We have an opportunity now, and we've tried to always be conscious of that, but we have an opportunity now to really, really break that cycle in our business, which inevitably began, and we certainly formed some dependence on it, but to really break that now, and use this pivot and the financial support that it's brought us to just really take the next risk and implement the models I described earlier to create these emotional connections outside of our four walls. So
that was awesome. In the nature of time, because it is 2:00, and for those of you who may have other commitments, I want to first and foremost thank you very much, Mark Ganter, for being part of our speaker series.
can I answer one question real quick?
I'm not going to actually cut it off.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I was going to offer anybody who needed to stay and ask if you would be willing to, maybe I see, Michael, your question as well. So there's a few people, but for those who can't, I want to let you know that you can sign off if you need to, encourage you to jump in on our, Ruth, am I right? Friday would be our next and last speaker series for this particular series this summer. So it's Friday the 22nd at 12:00. We'll be hearing from Arthur Holst, which is the retired vice president of IHG Hotels and Resorts. So those of you who are already on, please consider joining us on Friday as well. The rest of you, if you do have to go, by all means go, and thank you for being here. And anyone else who'd like to stay on, Mark, are you willing? Wrap up your thoughts and then answer a few more questions for those who may want to stay. You willing? Mark?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I want to address Michael's question. That's a great one.
Yes, so you can address Michael's question and go ahead and say whatever it is you wanted to say.
Sure, no, that was it. I just want to address that question.
Please do.
He was asking whether we were selling our sanitizer at cost to our bars and restaurants. Absolutely not. We could not make any money if we sold it at cost. We'd be losing money, right? And we're not in a commodity market yet. But why do you pay more for things that you could otherwise get for a lower price somewhere else? Because it brings some value to you, right? We're not selling at cost. We're not selling at an obnoxiously high price. We're selling it at a price that makes good financial sense for us. I think makes it still accessible and addresses a need, right? If it's not available, then we can decide how much we really want to sell it for, and if it's worth kind of alienating, potential long-term customers over an obnoxiously high price. Well, that's certainly not what we're doing. We're selling it in a way that generates, profitable revenue, but we're also not just giving things that can't be used. We're creating dispensing systems. We're offering purchase solutions so that they can get back into business in an effective way. As the commoditization of this forces the prices down to the point where it's no longer profitable for us, then we'll just back out. We happen to have some long-term purchase agreements in place now where we don't have to actively market it. We're fine, and it would lead to a nice transition. But we're getting really excited about these sanitizer stations right now, so we are going to pursue it a little bit longer because it's just a lot of fun too. But we'll do it to the point where it's profitable, and if it ceases to be profitable, then we can graciously exit the market and double down on what we do best and why we started this business.
That's great, Mark. Michael, hope you got your answer. Thought that was great. And Mark, lots of great thank yous. Thank you for speaking.
Thank you, guys.
Loving your insight. Lots of good comments. Thank you for taking the time to speak and on and on. Kirsten, did you want to ask your question? That's up to you. I'm just.
Okay, real quick. Kristen, how far geographically do you intend to sell the sanitizer stations? Are you delivering through a company? So we distribute our sanitizer right now. As far south as North Carolina, but to a large company that has their distribution center there and then redistributes to their companies. We'll distribute them as far as necessary. Economically, it's not like great to ship them because they're big and bulky, and you know, they don't ship as simply as you'd like. They're expensive to ship, and then all of a sudden the price starts to go up. But there's enough demand within, like, you know, an 8-block radius that I could hand deliver everything on foot. It's a slight exaggeration, but you know, we'll probably distribute them in the region, to be honest with you, because there's also a bit of a moral imperative for us. I mean, you know, we're getting the sanitizer business, the actual the equipment is not as profitable and infinitely more complicated than just producing bottles of sanitizer, throwing them in boxes, putting them on pallets, and shipping them out. It's a lot more work. But us shipping 90,000 bottles of sanitizer to Wells Fargo's distribution center in North Carolina to get sent throughout the country, the entire lower 48, does nothing to save Atlantic City as a market for us. So we really want to kind of take advantage of what we've been able to kind of to build and distribute here and flood this market. And we have, I think, the appreciation of the market that they're actually willing to take it. They're willing to use it, almost because they think they're doing us, they're throwing us a bone. They're helping us out too. And I'm like, great, whatever gets you through the night, but put the damn stations in your restaurant and make sure people use them, because in 2 months, if things go like they're going right now and there's one outbreak, this town is sunk. So if we can participate and people feel like they're doing us a favor by buying them, so be it. As long as they're buying them, as long as they're using them, and I don't care if they come from us, it's better if they do, if they come from someone else. But hopefully we're building a rhythm, and we're building sort of the expectation that, like, oh, I need to have these when I go out. These should be at the restaurant that I'm going to. These should be in the gym where I'm working out. These should be at the front of the movie theater I walk in. So that if they're not, people will think otherwise. Well, maybe I shouldn't go there, or maybe I should speak to the manager to make sure they do get one, so that maybe we can control this and you know, make things better going into the fall.
Thank you, Mark. Really great. I really appreciate
Thanks,
it. And
guys.
thank you for everyone who's hung on there. I guess my students feel, even though they've graduated, all 3 online, feel obligated to stay to the bitter end. So thank you, you guys. Godwin, great to see you as well. Anish, thank you. Kirsten, Ruth, Michael, really appreciate it. I'll see everyone on Friday. And you know what, Mark, you had left your contact information for everyone. So if you want to find Mark Ganter, you can find him at Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for everybody here today. I sincerely appreciate your presentation. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Keep rocking the mask, Damien.
Thanks, folks.
And now,
See you guys.
Mark, Damien's your connection to